It is going fucking atrocious, so should be fun. So obviously, we're gonna obviously what I'm trying to debate is on why obviously Death of the Author would apply to Legends, like whatever you call Legends, if it's Lucas, whatever. I'm not sure. You use a bunch of different terminology, but obviously it's a work of fiction, so I'm saying that Death of the Author would apply to it.
I'm assuming we're talking specifically in the context of like versus debates and stuff like that, right?
I think Death of the Author in general.
Yeah, but like
I don't
if
know.
it applies in general, then it'll also apply to versus debates. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they can also apply. Yeah. But I'm just saying that in general, it obviously applies to the verse. So this would be an aspect of obviously the verse, right? But yeah.
Right. So one of the main positions that we were looking at was the fact that we don't think like whether or not I don't think Death of the Author is a very robust idea anyway, but it definitely does not apply in the context of George Lucas's intent and statements. So that's something we can discuss.
So obviously, you disagree. You think it does, especially. Wait, do you think it applies to all authors or specifically Lucas?
You mean does it not apply to all authors or specifically Lucas? I'm willing to defend both, but the main argument is that it does not apply to Lucas.
So, you would say Death of the Author applies to like other authors in Legends, or you say it wouldn't?
No, I'm saying that I guess they're two separate statements. The main statement is that it definitely does not apply to Lucas, and I would also be willing to defend the position that it does not apply to other authors as well.
Okay, sure.
But like definitely not to Lucas.
So before we even start, can you define what you mean by Death of the Author, please? Or like
actually, I would like. I mean, I guess since it was your position, I'd be interested to see yours.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I would say that when I say Death of the Author, right, I'm saying that the only thing that matters when it comes to analyzing a verse or piece of fiction would be the work itself, right? Things that would be considered part of the work. So this would be, movies, games, like statements in the games. Like if a character makes a statement, or there's guidebooks or things like that. Any outside material that's not part of the fiction, right, would not count towards analysis, and no matter who it comes from, right, if it's not part of the work, for example, if they're not like re-releasing the film to change it, then Death of the Author would apply, and we would only use the things within the fiction, right? The authors don't have any sort of inherent authority over that piece of fiction. I keep saying fiction and media.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying, though, yeah.
Right.
Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that, or do you disagree? And if you disagree, can you give me your stance?
I agree with that definition. I mean, obviously, I don't agree with the Death of the Author, but I agree with that definition.
Sure.
When we say Star Wars, we're talking about when you talk about Legends, do you typically just mean like the EU before Disney?
Yeah, I would just say like all the content that was actually part of this. So like obviously trailers, obviously things like ads are not part of the verse, right? So obviously it'd be things that would be actually part of the verse. And I know there's some things that are considered non-canon. Like I think there was that comic with like the white suit Vader or whatever. But so obviously I'd be talking about like the extended universe as most people would define it.
Yeah, so it's just like if we took a time machine to before Disney nuked it all, that's what we consider.
Sure, yeah.
All right.
Go with that.
Yeah, so I guess there's two parts that we can discuss. The first is specifically to Lucas, and then we can also discuss.
Well, I mean, obviously, if you disagree with Death of the Author, I think it's best to start there, right? Because if you disagree with my initial premise of like what we're going to be using to argue, it doesn't make sense to move on. So why do you disagree with Death of the Author as a statement in general?
Well, okay, so the reason why I wanted to start with Lucas is because I was honestly surprised when I heard that you guys wanted to discuss that, because that's not even like remotely ambiguous, because there have literally been official statements, like probably dozens, from like Lucasfilms and from Lucas, like from the Lucas like keepers of like the holocron or whatever, that literally say
I know the statements. Stop. We're going too far. So like I said, you said you disagree with Death of the Author in general. So before we even get to Lucas or Star Wars, why do you disagree with Death of the Author in general? We need to start.
Well, I said that the primary argument is George Lucas, and then we can also talk about the broader issue of Death of...
So you have to understand, if we disagree with, so for example, if I use the word apple and we have two different meanings of the word apple, and we're debating if an apple tastes nice, we need to debate. We need to come to a conclusion on what the word apple actually means before we can move on forward. So we need we need to resolve this issue here of Death of the Author before we move on to Lucas. So then I ask you again, why do you disagree with the concept of death of the author?
That logic is actually not correct, because if there's a specific argument that gets rid of the subset of George Lucas's statements, then it doesn't matter if the broader set is true or not. Like,
No
given
idea
that
what
there
you're
were
saying. Can
specific
you repeat
statements.
that? Can you repeat that? What, make me understand.
Okay, if we have this debate over whether the law says that like fruits are legal to sell in the state of California, but then I have a law but then I'm saying that, like, even if that's true, which I don't agree with, there's a specific law for apples being illegal to sell in the state of California.
Okay,
Like, I can just like point straight to the
so you're
law
saying
that
that you're
says
steel
apples.
man. So okay, so you're saying that you're steel manning this argument to go onto the Lucas point to say that it would apply to Lucas.
I'm saying, yeah, even if it applied to all authors, it clearly does not apply to Lucas.
Okay.
Now, we could say that. But honestly, this is just a matter of procedure. Like, we can start with the general conversation.
Yeah,
The main
makes-
thing that I think is more unambiguous is to start with Lucas.
Yeah, I understand.
Which is like,
so I guess we're starting from here. Why do you disagree with the concept of death of the author?
okay, why do you agree with it?
You can't just reverse the burden. I ask you a question, you're gonna answer or not?
Well, actually, the statement, the affirmative statement, is usually the one that needs to be justified.
Okay,
You
sure.
want me to, like,
Okay, do you want to do this? Sure, we can do it like this. So I think death of the author stands for fictions, because we know that when we're judging, for example, a film. Let's just give the example of A New Hope. When we're talking about A New Hope, why it doesn't make sense, right? To make any statement, to take any statements that are outside of the fiction. If something is not part of the fiction and didn't happen in the fiction, why would we then take it on as part of it? Right?
well, it's not that it's a statement that's outside of the fiction.
Is it in the movie?
It's rather how you interpret the media, the sort of information that you have unto itself.
What?
So, for example, the fact that when we're talking about Star Wars, you presumably don't support, if I were to write a random piece of fan fiction and publish it on fanfiction.net, you wouldn't say that that's a part of the Star Wars canon.
Yep, sure.
And why would you say that? Because you trust some sort of authority to say these types of events in these parts of the movies are indeed canon, and these parts of the broader internet are not. So you definitely do take some sorts of things outside, not because you take them as necessarily independent like events, but rather in order to like interpret the events that actually happened. Or like another example is like, how do you know that the Star Wars theme song that plays at the beginning of every movie is not like a part of the universe? Right? That's like something that like could technically be true. There could be magical
sure. No.
text.
Stop.
Like,
The way
going
that I
through
know it, right, is I would then. So if you're making the affirmative of, okay, is the Star Wars theme song part of it? I would then ask you, okay, within the verse, can you show me that this is part of it? Because, for example, we do have examples in where I forgot what the specific term is, but when the music is part of the verse, aka something like Guardians of the Galaxy. In Guardians of the Galaxy, you have like when Quill is listening to music. Right, the things gets knocked off his headphones and we hear it coming from his headphones. So we can say that is part of the verse, right? So then I would ask you, do you have any evidence to say that this is the case within the verse?
Wait. So if something happens in the movie, do you need to like have specific evidence that that thing in the movie actually happened? Because then at that point,
what are you talking about?
No, if I'm watching a movie and
Yes.
I see like this human appear in the movie, like I assume that that's a part of the movie just by the definition of, if you're not going to like even grant that things are in the movie or in the movie, then you can't even grant
Hold
anything.
up.
So
where am I not granting that things are in the movie are in the movie?
yeah, so when you literally see on the screen these like floating images saying a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, or when you literally hear music, like you hear the Star Wars theme
Yep.
song
Yes.
in the same way that you hear Han Solo talking.
Yes.
Why would I need an extra burden of proof to show that that's in the movie when you assume that when Han Solo's talking, that's in the movie?
So you don't take the like the premise of the medium.
No, obviously, I'm not saying that I don't believe that the text is outside of the universe.
So what I'm saying is the obvious answer is we obviously have specific exceptions that we give to the medium, right? So are you saying that you disagree? Holy shit! Okay, my bad. Sorry.
Wait.
Are you saying that you disagree, and we have to talk about why a movie when a movie cuts, like the universe isn't getting destroyed or remade? Are we? Is this really what we want to do?
I'm not saying that
do we have to discuss like when I'm playing Force Unleashed, like I leave like Starkiller in the corner for like an hour and I go to the toilet. Like Starkiller didn't canonically just stand there for an hour. Like, is this really what you want to go to? Because we can do this, but obviously
it's a reductio ad absurdum of the argument, which is that in order, you said that we make an exception. First of all, you're already buying them.
Wait,
That
the exception of what? What exception are we making? The exception that
no,
this medium exists?
no, the exception that you are able to discern that there are
What a movie.
parts of the movie that are intended to be that are intended to be a part
sure.
of the
Then
story, and there are then parts of the movie that are intended to not be a part of the story.
So are you saying that we can't? Hold on. Are you hold up? Stop. Listen, wait.
It's an
hold
edge
up. Wait.
case, but
So are you saying that we can't discern what's supposed to be part of the movie and what's not supposed to be part of the movie?
no, I'm saying that we
Okay.
can.
So then you do agree with that, correct? So we
it's
can
a
discern.
reductio ad absurdum.
So
It's
no,
a
stop.
reductio ad
Listen
absurdum.
to me.
We can discern.
I'm so you agree that we can.
Hold
Hold up. So you agree that we can discern this, correct?
Yes, but I'm
Okay,
asking
so
you
then
how.
why are we
I'm
arguing
asking you
over
what
it?
is your methodology? No, that's how we.
The absurdum, right? What statement are you trying to reduce to its absurd form?
What I'm saying is that the reason why we can discern it, because we agree, I'm not saying that we can't. What I'm saying is that the reason why we can discern it is because we know that the intention of the movie makers is not for there to be literal flying. By the way, in other movies that might be the case. Like in Spaceballs, it might be the case that it looks like they're faking you out. It looks like it's like just like the metaphorical.
Oh, so are you saying that it's part of the fiction that they like? For example, when somebody like, for example, hold on, let me finish.
Star Wars,
no,
not in
hold
Star
on.
Wars.
So for example, like let's say in a comic book, when like a character like grabs, for example, when like Deadpool grabs the words that he's saying and like he hits somebody with them, right? We wouldn't say that, like we wouldn't necessarily give the other characters the same ability. So you're saying that obviously different fictions have different exceptions.
Because of the known intent of the directors.
Why is that the intent of the directors? Why is that not just? It's just what we see and happens on screen. Hold up. Are you saying when you say the intent of the directors? Are you saying that, for example, when Han Solo shoots a gun, that's the intent of the director too?
It's the intent of the directors that is what happened.
Okay, so then you're saying that the director's intent is just what happened, what we can see on screen. Luke uses the Force is the director's intent. The scene cuts is the director's intent. Is that what you're saying?
In the case of the moving text, the intent is obvious in Star Wars, not in like Deadpool or whatever. In Star Wars.
No. I'm trying to understand what you mean. When you say author's intent, are you just saying that the things that happen in the movie?
No. What I'm saying is that that when there is text moving on the screen, right? Mm-hmm. The intent of the author is not that text is literally things moving.
I'm asking you what you mean by author's intent or director's intent. That's what I'm asking.
For example, you might in an interview ask the author, why is there sound in space in Star Wars, or why is there like the Star Wars theme song playing? And then they might say, oh, that's just part of the storytelling, but it's not actually happening. Okay. And then you're like, okay, sure.
So then I'm going to ask you again, because you keep going off on a rant. You need to define your thing so we both understand what we're talking about. When you say director's intent, are you just saying that the things that happen in the movie?
You mean the author's interpretation of the things that happen in the movie?
No, stop. I'm saying that, for example, when Han Solo shoots a gun, whatever, laser sword or whatever the fuck Han Solo shoots, right? Are you saying that shooting is what we would consider that director's intent?
Well, the director's intent is the model, it's the predictive, the theoretical model that you have of the thing that the author has of what happened in the movie. Yes. If you're asking,
stop. That's not what I asked. Can you define? Can you just define what you mean by author's intent for me? Because I'm trying to understand. Go.
The author's interpretation.
Wait, the author's interpretation or his intent? Those are two.
Okay, fine. The author's intent is when the author wrote the flying text. Does he think in his head this is meant to be literal, or does he think in his head this is not meant to be literal? Okay, that's what intent means. It's not a roundabout definition. It's the most straightforward, obvious version of it.
So you're saying that the things that are supposed to happen within the fiction, within the story being told, right? Are you saying that because we can separate these things? What? Okay, you said you were trying to reduce one of my statements to absurdum. What statement were you trying to reduce to absurdum?
That if the author's intent cannot possibly be factored in. If the author's intent cannot be factored in, then you cannot argue that the flying text is or isn't a part of the fiction. You would have to include it in the fiction just as much as you include like Han Solo.
Would we also include, if I was to pause it, would we also include that as part of the movie?
You mean the moving text?
No, yeah. Let's say I'm watching Star Wars. I pause it. I go up and I go and grab a drink. Is that pause now part of the story? With this
No,
absurd? Why not? What? Why is that not part of it?
because the author's intent was not to factor in the subjective decisions of each person that happens to be watching the movie
Okay,
and
stop.
controlling the flow of it.
So author's intent is you're saying that because of the author's so you're saying that we don't give certain values to certain mediums. You don't give certain exceptions, right? So for example, when a character struggles to, for example, I'm not sure if you know anything about God of War, when Kratos struggles to to lift open a like a chest, but we see him like lifting open like I'm lifting a mountain later on or something, you would say that like the author intended for him to struggle to lift that chest, and you don't say that certain mediums have certain limitations and certain expectations.
Well, no. If mediums have expectations, that's because of the intent of the people that created the mediums.
What did
That still ties back to
Lucas
intent.
create film?
Well, different filmmakers can choose different rules for film. Like Lucas could choose to have made like an absurdist film where all of the text on the screen is literally things flying through the air.
Okay, so
like
so
Lucas
then,
could have
okay,
done that, but
so
he
then
didn't.
so then that would have been part of the fictions, right? The characters would have interacted with the words flying across the screen and being part of it,
And
right?
the point is that it depends on what Lucas decides or whoever owns the movie. It
Wait,
depends on
hold
what
up.
they say, which
Okay,
means it depends on.
while in the process of creating the movie, obviously the author has like power, right? The author can make whatever they want happen. What I am saying is, once this movie is out, right? Once the movie's been released to cinema or like put on DVD or whatever, the author's interpretation post that is irrelevant to my analysis of the film.
Wait, so you're saying only intent that happens ex post facto. So let's say Lucas gives an interview.
Okay,
And
hold on. Before you stop. Wait, before you continue, stop that. Please just speak fucking normal English. Don't fucking try to use big words. This shit's mega fucking stupid. You sound like a moron. You
I'm
sound
not
like a
using big
dumbass.
words. First of all, I'm being really nice with you. This is just a
I'm being
debate
really
about
nice
Star
with you
Wars.
too. I'm being
said I
completely
sound
honest
like
with
a
you.
dumbass.
You sound like a
Just said
dickhead.
it.
Continue.
Hey, the guy who's not calling the other person a dickhead is not the dickhead. Okay, but all
Wait,
I'm
didn't you
saying
just
is
call me a
that
dickhead by
let's say
saying,
that
okay, it's fine. You retard.
after
Anyway,
you did,
continue.
dude,
Continue.
we're just having a chill conversation.
I'm chill.
Like, but you just called me a dickhead.
Does that mean? Okay, this is irrelevant. Continue.
Okay, well you started. I'm just
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so
Hold on, can I clarify a point?
Who's talking?
who's this?
Can I? That was me. Sorry.
Nah, you can't.
What's up?
Oh, fuck you. Anyway, saying someone's being like a dickhead isn't calling them a dickhead. That's
Oh my!
not-
This is all a red herring. It's not. It's not
sure, but-
relevant. It's actually not
Hey,
relevant.
hey,
Ignore
come on.
it. It's not relevant.
All right,
Continue.
so let's say that George Lucas. I'm trying to see if I get your point, right? Like, let's say George Lucas is giving an interview, and he says, "Oh, when I wrote this scene, I meant it to be a dream," right?
Yes.
Because he's saying this is his intent when he was writing it. Then you would say, "Oh, okay, that's just Lucas's intent while he's writing it, so it's perfectly legitimate." But if he said, "Now I changed my mind and it's actually just a dream," then you're saying the second one is not legitimate.
No.
Is that correct?
No. So
what would it?
so
which
for
one
example,
would be legitimate?
So
Then?
let's say if as he's making the film, right? Because obviously we don't analyze media like, okay, some people I guess like writers and stuff like, if you're an editor you'd analyze media, but we don't tend to analyze media when it's mid work, right? I don't go watch like half of Star Wars and like critique it at that point, right? We usually critique media when it's finished or not even finished, when it's released, right? Because obviously games don't always come out finished, for example, right? That released product, the product that we get as the story, is what we then critique. I can't critique the filmmaking process. Then any statement made, right? So the film is out, whatever the media, the piece of media is out, right? And then if I'm to have an interpretation of it, right? If me and Lucas both have an interpretation of it, our interpretations of the media that's been out would be equally valid, right? There's no. Oh, okay. Sorry. Let me be more specific. Equally valid if they both follow the terms of the verse, right? So obviously, if I say, I don't know, fucking Luke can shoot fire out of his ass, obviously that's not like a valid analysis of the verse. There's nothing within the verse to show that, right?
Wait.
So
Okay. So in that case, let's say that I really do believe that the text on the screen is magic and it's part of the universe.
Sure.
How do you disprove me without?
No, stop.
referring to
Again,
intents?
like you said, if you make the positive claim, right? You would then say that you would then have to prove that the text is part of the verse, right? Because obviously,
Wait.
Yes.
So how do you prove that any part of the film is part of the verse?
Are we just going to go to
Like,
absurdum?
no,
Are you
like,
going?
why is it that I need special proof? Okay, if you don't like the moving text thing, we could say instead obvious bloopers in the film. So, for example, there was this scene in A New Hope where there was like this jacket that was like on the couch, and then it cut away, and then the jacket was like on the other side of the room. Obviously, just a mistake in the shot. Or like in Game of Thrones season 8, where like I think like there was
like
a
watch and
Starbucks
there's like a
coffee cup,
Starbucks coffee. Yeah,
right?
I
Yeah.
understand.
So we can reasonably say that it's not meant to say that there was like a secret Sith ghost teleporting the clothes from one side of the thing to the other.
Because
right?
we understand the limitations of the media. It's like the same thing with video games, right? We understand that even if I die 50 times on a boss, obviously some games take this into account, but most games, right? When I die 50 times on a boss and I beat it on my 51st try, we take that as a story because we obviously understand like there's certain conventions to storytelling.
Not quite, because this is a mistake. This isn't like a part of the medium. It's them just making a
I
mistake.
said okay. Like I said, I said limitations of the medium. People are going to make
Right.
mistakes. There's going to be editing mistakes, right? Sometimes it's part
But
of the
a
verse, aka
mistake is an intention-based statement. It could have been intended that this was a secret foreshadowing that the thing teleports from one end of the room to the other. If you, under your premise, don't care about intent at all, then you cannot differentiate between
Stop.
the two.
No, what you're misunderstanding is I'm saying that okay, if you're saying that the author's intent is what the author wants to do as they're making the film, I don't care about that. I'm specifically talking about post-film production. Once the film is finished, when it comes out, statements that are made afterwards.
But when I gave the example with George Lucas with the interview, and I said, if
Yeah,
he told you during the interview
Yeah.
that when he was making the
I
film,
then gave an explanation to that, right?
but what's the difference? When he's making the film, this was his intention.
When he's okay, if he's in the middle of making a film, he can change his intention, correct? Why would I critique something that's mid production? That's stupid. Let's say I don't know. There's a scene where like I don't know, Luke climbs the mountain and I start critiquing. I'm like, oh, this scene is too long or whatever. This movie is trash because of that. And then the release comes out in the movie that scene is not there. It doesn't. I don't care about pre-production. The only time I care about a medium is when it's out.
No,
I
I'm
literally
not talking
don't care
about
about it.
pre-production.
You're
I'm not talking
saying
about
while
pre-production.
he's making the film. I don't care about his intentions while he's making the film. I don't.
No,
the only time I care about the film is once it's out. Like I don't care about what he's thinking during
and the
it.
Starbucks cup was in the final product.
Yeah,
The
and then I would
Coke
argue that
was
that's the limitations of the medium, like me dying 50 times on a boss.
No, it's a mistake. That's not the medium. Does not necessitate.
Wait,
a
hold up,
Starbucks cup.
listen.
The
So the
Starbucks cup
limitation.
there
Hold up,
is a
listen to me.
mistake,
The
but a
limitations of
mistake
the
is
medium.
defined
Hold
by
up.
intent.
The limitations of the medium would include things like, for example, when I'm playing like a game, if I fall through the wall, do I then say that like, oh, this character fell through this wall and fell into a black hole on the ground? No, I'm like, okay. I understand the medium that I'm trying to express through.
Yeah, but
So-
you yourself called it a glitch. You yourself said that there can be glitches, there can be mistakes.
Yes,
Glitches and
which
mistakes
is
are
understanding the
defined
limitations
by-
of the medium.
Yes, yeah. The limitations of the medium based on intent. A mistake by definition is about intent. That's literally the definition of the word. It's about intent. If it's intentional, it's not a limitation. It's a feature. But the point is that the fact that you're able to distinguish the two, an intention and a mistake, or something that was intended or not, like the Starbucks cup, means that you can see that to some level intention matters.
Hold
If
up,
intention
stop,
did not
listen to
matter,
me.
you would
Hold
just
up,
take the
hold
things
up, hold
from
up,
there.
listen to me. So, when are you talking about intention? During the film production or afterwards?
No. The intention that is there at the moment that the film is finalized.
Listen,
So
of
let's say
course.
you
Okay,
know-
hold up. Wait, I said this at the start. I said that if Lucas intended for Han to shoot a gun in the movie, that's his intention and that's what happens. Which is why I tried to get you to define author's intent earlier and you wouldn't. I was trying to say that when you say the author's intent, are you just saying that the things that happen in the book? Sorry, not in the book, in the medium, aka I beat the boss, this person shoots this person, this story events happen. If that's what you mean, then of course author's intent matters because the verse wouldn't exist. But it doesn't matter to my analysis of the verse. Those are two different things.
Whoa. So you're saying it doesn't matter to your analysis of the verse?
Shit, yes.
No, but when you analyze the Game of Thrones universe, you don't take into account the Starbucks cup because you know that it was an unintended mistake. So you factor in intention there. Now it seems like
Wait, hold up, no, stop. Wait, no, okay. I also when I talk about the Star Wars universe, it's not the Star Wars, the Game of Thrones universe. I also factor in the fact that the factor in the fact that Jon Snow died, correct? Like, oh, spoilers, by the way. I also factor in this fact that Jon Snow died, right?
But that's not at all the same. No, that's a literal event that happened. But the Starbucks event, what you're doing is
that's something that literally happened. What do you mean? Were those copy cups not on the table?
Exactly, but you're willing to delete them from your mind because you don't actually consider Starbucks to exist in Game of Thrones.
Because we understand the limitations of the...
Exactly. And the limitations include intent.
Wait, hold up. What are we arguing about? You understand that I agree that when the author is trying to do something, right, there's obviously limitations, and we have to understand the limitations of the mediums that we're using, correct?
So, but the limit, you keep on using the word limitations as though it's different from intent. But in this specific case, the key subset of limitations.
What are you trying to get at here? Actually, let's just skip through all this. What are you trying to get at with this author's intent? Author's intent during the production of something.
I asked you the question about George Lucas with the interview, and I don't think you quite got what I was saying because I think I was actually accurately characterizing your position when I said George Lucas can give an interview and say that this scene, when I made it, it was supposed to be a dream. That's one thing, and then the second thing is, when I made it, it was not supposed to be a dream, but now I changed my mind. And what I'm saying is that to steelman your position, you're saying that the second one doesn't matter. George Lucas can't change his mind after it's made. But just like how the Game of Thrones people can say, we didn't mean the Starbucks cup to be there. But they can't say, oh, we changed our mind. Daenerys was actually supposed to be named Katie. Like, they can't change their mind after the fact. But they can say that when they made the film, that was not meant to be a Starbucks cup. Or when George Lucas made the scene, it was or wasn't meant to be.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that when we're analyzing medium, we just pretend that humans don't exist.
What? I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying
because what you're saying is it's very obvious to everybody, and I don't think anyone will disagree with that. That when there's a mistake in a verse, right, we ignore it because we understand that's how things are, right?
Yes.
Right?
So then intent does matter. That's an intention. I think that the reason why you're frustrated is because I'm obviously picking an extreme example, but nonetheless, you said that it shouldn't matter at all.
Okay.
So I'm allowed to use
did I say... Okay, hold up. When did I even say author's intent? I said the author's interpretations early on, actually. So I'm not sure... So you're the one that brought up intent, right? So I've been arguing about his... Because that was what was in my definition, was the author's interpretation of the media, right?
So we'd have to go back and look, but...
Yeah, that's what I did say, because I was talking about his interpretation of the media. But again, this intent thing, if you're just saying that... If you're just saying that what happens in the film, aka, like, I don't know, Obi throwing a gun away, or Obi saying a line, or the fact that, like, you know, the scroll text isn't part of the verse, or the fact that, like, a glitch can happen, or that I can die at a boss 50 times, of course the intent of the medium matters. Like, I don't know why that's a problem.
Well, because you said
Nope.
when you say interpretation, okay, let's say that the D&D writer said our interpretation was not that the Starbucks cup was literal. See, the interpretation is like you intend to interpret something.
Huh?
So the
wait, stop. What if you don't intend to interpret something? Hold up. When you say interpretation, what do you mean?
No, whatever interpretation is, you have to intend to interpret it.
Hold up. What does interpretation mean?
Interpretation means that given the set of facts in the film, different people can connect the dots different ways. So an example is like Mace Windu versus Palpatine. Did he throw the fight or did he not? Well, would you care if George Lucas came and said, when I made the film, I intended it to be a ruse? Or if he said that he did not, right? That's the thing here is that he's not adding new information. He's not adding new events to it. He's just interpreting the events
that's
did
cool.
happen,
So
right?
then, okay, here's the question then. If George Lucas says that, right, and then I then say, no, I make the opposite statement. I say, oh, it wasn't a ruse, right? And we're both using evidence from the film. Do we have an equal interpretation if we both, like, let's say, I don't know, we both show like a clip from this film of, like, or whatever, right? We both show some evidence that is from the film. Would you say that he is inherently more correct because he's the author or not?
Okay, so this is an interesting question. So the first thing I want to say quickly is that the fact that I don't think that death of the author applies does not mean that in all cases the author's word is God. Just that it means more than nothing, right? So let's just get out of the way. Now, since we're talking about Lucas specifically,
I actually want to interrupt real quick.
In the case of
no, hold up, because I was specific. I said that the author's interpretation, right? Because I did actually give the caveat of, obviously, if the author says something that's completely wild, or if I say something that's completely wild, I gave the example of like Luke farting fire. That's something not part of the verse, right? That's obviously we can dismiss that. What I'm saying, right, is that when the author makes an interpretation based on the evidence of the film, and then I also make an interpretation based on the evidence of the film, right? I'm saying that the author doesn't inherently, because he's the author, have more credibility than me.
And I would definitely disagree in the case of Lucas, and I would strongly disagree.
That's the point I've been trying to say. You've been going nowhere. So we're talking about, does the author inherently have more credibility than the non-author or whatever, than like a layman?
First of all, this is not inherently different from the conversation we were having. When you say that there's a difference between intent and interpretation, if we delve enough into the definitions, really the only difference is that one is like a more extreme case than the other, but it's only on a spectrum. When the author has the ability to say that Starbucks cup was not there or was there, that's their interpretation of it. Like, unless if you can come up with a qualitative difference between intent and interpretation, there's no inherent difference there. It's just a more extreme example. But again,
so you're saying that intent and interpretation mean the same thing?
In this context, can you come up with a difference between them? In the context of in this context.
So you're saying that in this context and no context else, you're using the words intent and interpretation are the same thing?
No. So I can instead just say the D&D writers interpreted.
Don't give me examples. I want definitions here, because obviously I want to understand what we're talking about. So are you saying that in this context alone, you're using the terms intent and interpretation as the same thing?
It means, what did the author want to be true? When it was when you say intent and interpretation, you just mean that what the author wants to be true or wanted to be true. Those are two. What's your interpretation?
My words don't matter. Because obviously you're the one that said intent and interpretation mean the same thing.
What would you say?
Well, it doesn't matter. Like I said, it doesn't matter what I'm saying. I'm asking you.
Okay, fine. If you don't mind, then I guess what we're saying. But the point is that,
because obviously I'm obviously not going to like agree to this term, right? Which is why I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
Let me ask you, why is it that Lucas has the authority to say...
No, don't do this.
No.
Let's not
talk about Lucas.
I don't fuck Lucas. Fuck Lucas. I don't care about Lucas.
Okay, fine.
Because listen to me. We can't go on if you're going to use two words as the same thing. I have to understand what you mean. Stop running away from this point.
So
please define intent and interpretation, right? Define each.
Just answered it. What the creator wants to be true. The creator wants to be true.
So you're saying that when you use the word intent and interpretation in this context, you just mean it as what the creator wants to be true?
Yeah.
Okay, so then why would we use these definitions?
What definition?
You're saying that intent. So you're saying that intent and interpretation just mean what the author wants to be true, correct? I didn't mishear you there.
Intention is a want. Huh? Yeah. What's your definition? What is your definition?
No, okay. My definition we can come after. I'm trying to understand. Listen, if I don't understand your point, how can I argue against it?
I've answered your question in the affirmative like 7 times. Like, I don't know why you keep asking me. Yes.
Okay. Then why do we use these two terms interchangeably? Why are the same thing? Why in this context did you choose to use these two terms as the same thing?
Let me pull up the dictionary definition.
What dictionary are you using? Actually, also before I guess I didn't think we were going to post scans, but where do you want to post them?
A determination to act in a certain way. What intensity do you bring about? That's such a circular definition. Why are they doing this?
Well, I mean, definitions tend to be circular, right?
Are you really okay?
No. Am I really asking you why you're using two words as the same thing? Yeah, of course I am. Yes. Don't say that. Don't do that.
It's called a synonym. Yeah.
So this is like the Cambridge definition for what intent means, right? Interpretation. Hold on. Oh wait, I posted that shit in general, by the way, because I couldn't find another chat to post it. Now we can use a different definition if you want, but obviously I'm like, we have to like agree on words before we can continue.
Well, okay, you know what? how about since we don't seem to agree on the definition of these two words,
Mm-hmm.
let's just talk about the direct concepts instead of what
Okay,
particular
so
word.
no, so then I'm going to
The
say
direct-
this. I'm going to say this. When I say the term interpretation, I mean that somebody looks at something and then gives their explanation for what that something means. Right.
Yeah.
So
when
hold up.
George Lucas looks at the text and says, "My explanation for that is that it's not a part of the literal universe, but it's added on for the sake of flair."
What do you mean? I don't know. Are you talking about the text scroll?
So George Lucas can say, "I don't believe I don't interpret that to be literally in the universe. I interpret that to be
Okay,
just a part of
sure. Then if
flair."
I also make the same claim, does his claim have any more weight than my claim?
Yeah, or else
Okay,
by that logic,
that's
I
cool.
could just claim
No,
the
no,
opposite.
that's cool. Okay,
I
that's
could
cool.
just claim the opposite.
No,
sorry, yours-
hold on, no.
his
Wait,
has more
we're
than
getting
yours,
to the point. So you're saying that his claim inherently has more weight than my claim, even though we're making the same claim, right?
Well, if you're both making the same claim, then it's a bit like weird to say that one has more weight because we're literally the
Well,
same
I mean-
claim. Rather, if you two make different
No,
claims,
not
then his claim wins
necessarily.
out.
I mean, if
his claim wins out.
if I make a claim about, like, I don't know, if I make a claim about COVID, and like someone who's been researching COVID for the last 2 years makes the same claim, one of us is obviously more justified because I'm just some rando, while he's someone that actually researches, and obviously that
It
wouldn't be a
depends on
foolish.
how we define justified. But okay, fine. If George Lucas says something about interpreting the film, I care about it more than yours.
Yeah,
Put it
why?
that way. Okay, well, in Lucas's specific case, it's because it's literally defined that way.
Okay,
in the
it's
way that the
defined
canon
by that
hierarchy
way
set
by
up.
other author statements, correct?
No, it's defined that way by the
By
gatekeepers
statements
of
from the
holocron, what
authors,
they're called.
correct? Okay, my bad. Let
No,
me be
not
more
authors.
specific.
Leyland
No,
Chief's not an
stop. When I say author, I mean anyone that's indirect. For example, I would consider an editor an author, or writer an author, or like the CEO an author. People that work on the medium, right? So people like so the directors, the filmographers, the people like the people who do the choreography on films. These would all be authors. So when I say author, I don't mean the literal writer. If somebody has an effect on the verse, right, then they would have
Yeah.
to be. So then you're saying that author statements for George Lucas are justified because another author using author statements said they're justified. That would become circular.
No. The same people who can determine that my fanfiction.net story is not a part of the Star Wars continuity because there's like a legal ownership to Star Wars, like
Wait.
it's an actual incorporated product.
I understand that.
You don't use my fanfiction, right?
The
You don't use my
legality-
fanfiction in your debates.
Hold up, stop. The legality of the thing does not matter.
Okay, something matters
Right.
that lets you decide. That you even said at the beginning, oh, I know that some things are not canon. You know, you even said at the beginning, oh, I know something like. You even used the term legends. The same people that you're now saying don't matter created the concept of legends, and you followed it.
So-
So you clearly give them some authority.
Hold up. So you understand that this is just a way to look at the verse, right? This is just a coherent way to look at the verse. I could actually, I mean, some people do actually do this. Some people ignore the Legends Disney distinction, right? And then they say that, oh yeah, it's all the same. Now, obviously, there's heavy contradictions, right? So I'd say, okay, how come this story and Luke died and all this stuff, right? So there'd be heavy contradictions. So the only reason I'm listening to them is so that the stories don't necessarily inherently contradict, right? There hasn't massive contradictions between them. I'm not listening to them because I somehow give them some authority. I'm just listening to them because this is the way that this is just an arbitrary way that we chose to separate it.
Okay, so when you defined it, you agreed that there were some interpretations that were less valid than others. You said that, oh,
No.
if I made an no, you literally said unless if mine's insane, like Luke can shoot fireballs.
Yeah.
then, you know.
Yeah. So that interpretation, right? And the only thing I'm using is I'm not using anyone's like outside. Again, like I said, I think the media sources, aka films and books, hold the highest authority, right? And then if there's nothing to say that Luke can do this in the verse, why I would obviously, and then I have an interpretation that Luke can do this in the verse. My interpretation doesn't make sense. I'm not saying that all interpretations are equally justified, right? I'm just saying that interpretations that follow the verse, right? If two people make assumptions, if two people make interpretations about the verse, right? One being an author, and all things being equal, one being an author and one not being an author, right? Obviously, they use the same amount of justification and everything is within the verse. That the author does not have any inherent, right? That does not have any inherent like power over obviously, I could be wrong and the author could be right? That's just how it is.
Well, but why can't you just why can't you just write a fanfic on a Google Doc right now where Luke shoots fireballs out of his ass and say that this is a part of Return of the Jedi?
Sure, I could do that. Then that would be part of that Return of the Jedi. Sure, then we would have to be talking about that collection of Return of the Jedi, right? Because, for example, I'm not sure how much you know about, for example, DC Comics. For example, obviously there's lots of different universes, right? And sometimes people use like the composite versions of all of these, right? So we can choose to use we can choose to use my Star Wars fanfic. People choose to use like Dragon Ball Multiverse. That's a Dragon Ball fanfic. You can choose to do that if you want to analyze something. That's fine. But we're just choosing to use the distinction that Disney has given the legends and because obviously they're the one making the content. We're just choosing to use the distinction between legends and canon. That's just a choice that we decided to make. It's arbitrary, sure.
Well,
it's arbitrary because what we're trying to do is we're trying to we're trying to like make things the most consistent and like have like a obviously slotted flow of the plot and story, right?
When we had this discussion, I asked you, okay, we're going to talk about legends. And you said, yes, there's legends and there's the EU. There's some things were canon, some were not canon.
Yep.
And I said, let's just take a time machine and go back. And you said, yeah, okay, that's fair. So you said that we were agreeing to talk about the EU, and you even said there are some things determined to be canon and not canon.
Yeah, because those Darth Vader stories that I said aren't canon, I could literally use them. I could interpret Darth Vader as part of that. There's nothing like, you understand when we're talking about what is canon, it's a choice that we make. Whether that choice is
in this debate, we chose to talk about the EU, and the EU. In the EU, there are literally statements about what is and isn't canon.
No,
like if you don't agree with that, then fine. You should have said at the beginning, we're not talking about the EU. We're talking about my fan fiction.
Stop.
And every single thing.
Stop. So when I say that within the EU, right, the things that are canon, so they can choose that. Oh, maybe this random story isn't canon. That's fine. By me saying that we're working within the confines of the EU, I am going with all the works that these people have collected, right? All the books, movies, games, whatever that they've collected and said as part of the EU. That's what I'm going over. All that body of work is what I'm going under. So, for example, let's say they say that KOTOR for some reason isn't canon anymore. Well, I could then say, well, we'll talk about Legends plus KOTOR. Or like EU, whatever you want to call it, EU plus KOTOR, because I want that to be part of the story, right? Or I could say, okay, yeah, I'll use like their new definition for Legends, which is EU, but it doesn't have the first KOTOR game, but it has the second one for some reason, right? Like the canonicity choice is irrelevant to Death of the Author. The canonicity choice is a choice that they made, right? That we choose to follow because we want to. We don't have to follow it. We choose to follow canonicity choices.
If what you're trying to say is that technically, because literature is inherently not based on empirical data, that we could literally make up any rules that we want, then I guess that's trivially the case for any literature. But that's not clearly not.
Okay, sorry, my bad. My bad. Go.
What I'm saying though is that, first of all, practically speaking, every single, like, if you want to have you're in a community that does versus debates, you have to have some sort of objective universal methodology. Obviously there can be debates within about the exact methodology, but you cannot say, oh, this fan fiction is now canon because I wrote it. Practically speaking, that makes it impossible to discuss.
No, hold up. So I could say that. Hold up. I could say that so I could, within the debate context, let's say I write a bunch of Vader. Okay, I'm not gonna say that. That was about to be some scuffed shit. Let's just say I write some Vader fanfic, right? You can imagine what I would have said. Let's say I make some Vader fanfic, and I say, "Oh, when we're using this debate, you can use Darth Revan, and I'm gonna use EU plus my Vader fanfic." You can say no, and we can just not debate, but I have the choice to do that. Right? No one can stop me. Like, you can't stop my So the only thing that legality has is I obviously can't sell their products. Right? I can't sell their products. Right? Or like I think you also can't copy. There's a few copyright, like obviously the copyright laws. But if I'm doing my own fan fiction, and for most verses you can write fan fictions, I can then choose my fan fictions to be the law. Have you heard of Sonic Chew? Sonic Chew is massive. Well, I don't know how big it is anymore, but Sonic Chew was massive. People use that and interpret the Sonic Chew story and the law. Right?
I mean, at this point, you're basically just saying, when you say I'm allowed to do that, Like, yeah, I'm not saying that that somebody's going to barge into your house and prevent you from doing it. I'm just saying that in every single actual community that talks about these things, we actually take into account whether or not the work has been yes, theoretically you could have like a fan site for like, fan fiction in this particular thing. But indeed, even in this conversation, we agreed that we were looking at the EU. I even said we took a time machine and go back. We were looking at the EU, right?
Yeah.
And the EU, by definition, includes Lucas's statements as G canon.
Stop.
That's literally
hold
part
on.
of EU. If you didn't want to have that conversation, then you could have just said
because listen to me. Because the reason is I don't care about canon. I care about works. Right? Is Lucas's statements like part of the films, part of the books, part of like is Yoda fighting Sidious and like Lucas walks up and says, yeah, this is how I intend this fight to go, and then says, oh, carry on, guys, and then walks away. Does that happen? If that happened, then sure, his statements can be part of the verse. But if it's not part of the works of the verse, then I don't care about it. Right? Sorry, not that I don't care about it. Then when he makes an interpretation on it, right, it has no more value than my interpretation on it. When we have this body of works, which is they said that all I think the thing is all works published by Lucasfilm before the year 2014 would be counted as legends. Right, I think that was something like that, 2014, 2013, or whatever it was. So all of those works would be legends. Doesn't mean statements and interviews, right? Who cares? Those are their interpretations of that work. They're not part of the work itself.
Okay, well, that might be your preference, but that's not literally what the EU means.
Okay.
Like the EU includes,
so
maybe.
Wait, hold up. Wait. Okay, can you show me these statements of them saying that Lucas's words are literally canon and part of the body of works? Like, can you tell me that when they say that Lucas's statements are literally like an addendum, right? If we could re-edit them and put them out, we would put Lucas's words, in between when Anakin and Vader are fighting, we'll have like Lucas in the back reading off his arguments. Because obviously, if that didn't happen within the verse, then I don't give a fuck, right?
Lucas's words are considered to be G canon.
I understand. So G canon is I think it's the first 6 seasons of Clone Wars and then the 6 movies, right?
And Lucas's word.
And Lucas, so if they're considering Lucas's words, right? Okay, hold up. Can you actually give me what they specifically say before I go on?
Sure. There's like 20 different ones, so I'll try to find one.
Because obviously, because obviously works aren't part of.
So what the fuck is goon?
Well, you're now adding in. Sorry, I'm looking, but you're now adding in the extra criteria that it has to be a work. We just said it has.
No, I've been saying no. Don't fucking try that bullshit on me, nigga. Do not fucking try that. I've been saying that shit since the start of the debate. Don't fucking try to lie to me.
No,
don't lie. I've been saying works since the fucking very first sentence I said. Don't fucking try to lie to me. I'm not. Listen, I don't like this dishonest shit. Just have a conversation with me, my nigga. Do not fucking try this shit. I don't care for it.
Why are you getting?
It's 1:43 in the fucking morning. Don't just sit there and lie to me. Don't just sit there and lie to me. Don't just sit there and lie to me. So go and find your fucking scans. Jesus fucking Christ.
We literally.
Hurry up. Go. Stop fucking talking. Go find your scans.
I said if we took a time machine back to the EU, right?
Holy shit.
That we would be using.
I said works.
And you said
I
yes.
said works. I said works multiple different times. Please go and find the statements, please.
So why?
Listen, hold up. I know that and is up there feeding you arguments too. Go and get him to find the statement. It's probably not that hard. Go and find the statements, please.
Dude,
hello.
Calm down, dude.
Hello. I'm mega calm. Calm
down.
I'm super calm. Now, please find the statements.
You can say that you're angry and it's justified, but you can't say that you're not angry. Okay?
I'm not angry.
You're
I'm annoyed.
At me, so
I'm annoyed. I'm starting to steam up a little bit, but I'm still pretty chilling.
You're not angry. You're just annoyed. Okay?
I'm steaming up a little bit. My temperature's rising a little bit. It's pretty hot.
I don't know why. I'm just trying to have a nice conversation, and you
listen,
keep getting pissed.
I love having nice conversation, but I hate when people lie to me because it's boring. Because I know what I said. Everybody else knows what I said. It's also being recorded, so there's no point in lying.
George,
please find the statement.
So let me ask you a question.
Just post the statements.
If
just
George Lucas gives,
are you planning on finding the statements or not?
If George
How are you
Lucas
planning on okay, do you
gives an interview, dude, have you done any research in this topic at all? You don't know that George Lucas.
wait, so you're just not gonna post a scan?
Dude, I'm trying to find it, but you keep like
Wait, hold
literally
up.
cutting
You
at me
have
while
like
I'm doing
70
it.
fucking goons. Darth Ant, go and find the scan. I know you have it. Like, you have
Okay,
a bunch
just-
of it. Like, anyone can post these scans. I don't really care who posts it. Jesus. The scans, them saying that Lucas's works are literally, sorry, Lucas's words are literally parts of the body of the body of work. Because that's
Yeah,
literally
sorry,
my.
I'm just
Yes,
looking
that's
for
what
it right now.
that's what I've been saying since the start. Jesus fucking Christ.
Sorry, I'm just looking for the.
I'm not really okay. So that first one is anything created by George Lucas is G canon, including unpublished author interviews, internal drafts, etc. George can dictate G canon realities without Chi's approval. What's this from?
I don't know what you're talking about right now.
That
'Cause I'm not
first
looking
no
at the
no.
chat.
Okay, Ant is posting some scans
Okay, where?
in wait, hold up, wait, sorry. When okay, that first line that you posted, is that what the scan says, or is that, oh, that's you describing the scan? Okay, give me a second.
Wait, which channel are you talking about?
Oh, so someone added you in the channel.
Calcs and scans.
Which one?
So it's a like a bunch of people are asking. You should be able to see like the ads. Okay, our novelization of film
Yeah,
considered
I'm
G
just
canon or
looking-
C
there
level
we go.
material. In a nutshell, anything created by the author would be C level. Anything in the novels created by the George Lucas, whether it comes from unpublished early script versions, unpublished author interviews with George, or George's revision to the novelization manuscript, would be G level, unless contradicted by the films. It gets a little more complicated when someone is seen on screen but not named. So the Shura fruit mentioned in the novel would be G because it's from where the author came up with the name. Is there anything posted not in the database knows anything anymore? Okay, so they're saying that this is some. So they're saying that even things that aren't released are part of the works.
So basically, when people in this, when novelists, for example, want to create new stories,
Yep.
they literally, the people who get to approve or not approve the story literally have to first make sure that it
I know what
coincides
editor
with
does.
Lucas's vision, right? No, it has to coincide with Lucas's vision. So,
I
for
know
example,
that.
if Lucas in 2006 said that he thinks that this person doesn't like to eat cheese, and then the guy wrote a story where he does like to eat cheese, that story cannot be published because of that. I mean, at least in theory. Maybe sometimes they miss it, right? So at the very least, that means that his work overrides the authenticity of any other particular work. In fact, it's not just, by the way, literally it becomes end canon. So you said before, you acknowledged that something, that they get to decide what is and isn't canon, right? If Lucas says something that then overrides a C canon work, it literally becomes end canon. It literally now you could say that you just don't give a fuck. You just like, I don't care about what Lucas says. I don't care about what any of them say. And that's your right as a whatever citizen of the world you are to do that. Nobody's saying you don't have the right to do that. But you agreed that we're talking about Star Wars legends, that you agreed that they have the right to say this is canon, this is not canon, because you literally agreed by their policy. You said, I know that they consider some things to not be canon. So you clearly believe that Lucas's word holds value. If you don't think that holds value, then you just don't agree with the premise of the conversation about talking about Star Wars EU.
You done? You want to respond to that? Hello? You there? Am I here? Did I disconnect?
Did you hear what I just said?
Yep, I heard everything. I just didn't want to interrupt you. I wanted you to finish fully.
Yeah. So, and this is like, again, you could argue like this is just the technicalities of how the Star Wars internal canon system works. Mm-hmm. And then you could say, I don't give a fuck about it. But then why were you talking about the EU and Legends? Like, Legends is, by definition, a part of, like, definition by authorities. If you want to talk about, like, a more general philosophical question about Death of the Author, I'm happy to do that, too. But with Lucas, it's case closed, includes case shut. So, like, I mean, take it wherever you will.
Okay. So then let's look through this. So these are author statements, correct? Okay. Obviously, I gave my definition for what I meant author was before, right?
There are statements by people who are employed by the company, yes.
So like editors and people like that, right?
Not just
or like
editors.
directors, or continuity managers, whatever you want to fucking call them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So okay, so like I said, I defined these people as authors before, right? Okay.
I mean, sure.
So like I'm saying, right? With when it comes to this, right? When it comes to analyzing works, this guy dictates what is considered official canon. He's employed to dictate canon. Yes. Okay. Holy shit. So like I said, when we're talking about death of the author, and by the definition I gave earlier in the like actually when you asked me for the definition I gave specifically was the published works, right? I said that the only thing that matters when it comes to me interpreting, might be saying that wrong. You know what I'm saying, right? Me interpreting the fiction is what the published works, right? That was the premise of the debate. It was about why, for some reason, if Lucas has an interpretation on something, and I have an interpretation on something, why would his interpretation inherently hold more value than mine? Because here what it is right. Lucas hired these people, then gave them power. So he hired these people, then gave them power to then give him power. So it all comes from Lucas. None of these people would have been hired, right, if it wasn't for like Lucasfilm, right? If it wasn't for like Lucas himself going out, right? So these people are using the authority given to them by Lucas to then give Lucas authority. It's all circular.
I mean, sure, it's circular, but you could just, if you want to ignore them,
which
just go
is
by the
why
fact that Lucas is the creator, then sure.
The creator doesn't matter. I could create a story right now. I don't want to do that, but let's if I create a this is if I create an give me a second, my bad. Okay, so if I create a story right now, right, I'm the author, but someone's interpretation would be as valid if it's not if all things being equal, our interpretations being equal, and the only difference is I'm a director or the author and he's not. You need to somehow show that for some reason this author would have a higher level of power. For example, let me give you an example, right? Again, let's say there's a movie where at the end of the movie there's like two doors. We don't see which door the dude goes through, right? But then we see him on the other side. We see him on the other side of the door, right? And like based on the movies, different people have different interpretations of the movie of what happened. Kind of like Inception, right? Where like there are two options to do it, and his the interpretation of the author there and my interpretation, right, would be equally as valid if we're both just using the medium.
Okay, so let me address this in a few ways. Firstly, if we're just making the general statement that, okay, so you don't agree that all interpretations are equally valid, you just believe that it only depends on the substance of the interpretation and not on who's saying it, basically. Is that correct?
Oh, sorry, my bad. I was reading something because I was looking through the rest of your scans as well.
So since you've said that you believe that you can indeed say some interpretations are ridiculous and some are not, you're basically saying that you
remember what I said.
Don't care about the substance. You care about only the substance.
I want to clarify. I want to clarify that point specifically because obviously I don't just want to leave it at that. I say that some can be ridiculous if obviously they contradict what is explicitly shown in the mediums, right? So it's not just I think some are worse than others. Some are specifically worse if they have no evidence or backing from the media. That's what I said. So like obviously you might have meant that, but I need to clarify so we understand what we're all on the same page.
Sure, but within, let's say that you have two interpretations of the same event, and they both involve, creating theories around the given fact. So let's say, for example, one person says that Mace Windu legitimately beat Palpatine, another person thinks that it was all a ruse, right? Mm-hmm. Neither is directly contradicted by the events, but you're saying that both events are like, are you saying that both events are equally valid?
Are equally valid, yes.
Okay, so there's a few things that I want to talk about here. Firstly, for the purposes of, for example, like a versus debating community, in order to have any sort of debate, you have to have some sort of idea that you can try to like show that one set at least like is more parsimonious, fits Occam's razor better, fits the facts better, etc. Right? So like obviously there's no like objective God deciding it, but for the purposes of a versus debate in a community, people have some sort of standards.
Yeah.
And then there's two parts to this. One is the logic behind it, and the other is like the premises, the given facts behind it. So for example, when we talk about fan fiction and we say it can interpret, it is true that someone can make their own server and be like, in this server, all fanfiction.net stories are legit. That's true. However, in basically every like debate server that there is, people are going to laugh at you if you try to barge into a conversation and say, every single like thing that I decide to be true that I write in the Google Doc is now legit. Because in order to have a facilitative conversation, you need to have some sort of source of authority not on the logic, not on the arguments, but on the premises of what is given to be true. So that's why it goes back to my thing about the Starbucks cart. Like, you need to have someone deciding, okay, like this part of the movie is like literal, and this part of the movie is definitely extra didactic, whatever it's called.
Then that's fine.
So
if me and you, for example, if me and you are arguing, right, then you would say, for example, let's say I took the position that, actually, there being a Starbucks cup is obviously there, right? Like we see it on the video. It's clear as day, which means that something called Starbucks exists within the Game of Thrones universe, or that they have some sort of logo, or something related to Starbucks exists within the Game of Thrones universe. That is your interpretation. Then my interpretation would be, hey, well, we could make that, or right, we could say that, well, this is obviously a mistake by the crew. Now, both of these are not equally valid, right? Because one takes the medium into account. One takes, people make mistakes into account. My analysis has nothing to do with the authors. It's simply, we look at it, we say which one would be more logically consistent and fit with the verse the most. That a Starbucks suddenly out of nowhere pops up, or that there was simply an error, right?
Well, when you say that it's good to take into account the medium and the fact that people make mistakes, when you say that it matters whether or not the author makes a mistake, you're acknowledging that the authors.
Don't go back to this. We did this at the start. Okay,
whatever.
Hold on. Okay, we've gone through this conversation, right? Like we.
You don't have to use the
minutes.
word. We don't have to use the word intent or interpretation.
No, because we're just gonna have the same conversation. I don't want to have. We had this conversation for like 20 minutes at the start of this.
Because it's the smoking gun. Like you say that that only the work matters and not the authors, whatever. But then you're saying at the authors whether or not the author made a mistake or not.
The medium. Holy shit! Because it seems that like so if you want to be okay, no. So I feel like this is like this is where like I guess we could go to philosophies, right? Because sometimes, right, when you say that when people give extreme hypotheticals, it's usually actually a good way to test, right? It's usually a good way to test the consistency of an argument, right? But the problem with extreme hypotheticals is they can get to the point where they in themselves are absurd and it's impossible for it to happen, so it's actually irrelevant, right?
No, actually, the plausibility of the hypothetical only matters if the plausibility is like a variable in it.
Yeah.
Like
no. I'm saying that if you give a hypothetical that's so extreme that it's impossible for it to happen, right? I don't think it matters, right? Because that is not in relevance to the question. And then what I'm saying here is that you're trying to say that when we interpret media, we for some reason we start with the assumption that literally every single thing that we see. So for example, the menu screen in a game is somehow part of it. Like the characters, when some menu screen.
I'm saying the opposite.
No, that's what you're saying. You're saying that we would have to somehow prove that the author's intent would be for that not to. But what I'm saying is that us as not let me not use that word. Us as people that aren't mentally deficient, right? We can understand different mediums, and I think that there are certain things, right, that we have to sort of give and take. So, for example, we have to give and take that. When I say the word apple, me and you mean the same thing by apple, or we can't have a conversation about if an apple tastes good. Right? This is not necessarily a justified assumption that we both think of the same thing. Even if I was to get an apple and show it to you, we then assume that we both see and experience the world the same. We can't prove that anyone experiences the world the same as us, right? Because this is the level we're getting to. We just have to.
You said
Yes.
you used the word people make mistakes to justify the Starbucks cup. You said people make mistakes.
Yes. Which is me acknowledging
Mistakes
that this is a mistakes as in Starbucks never existed, and obviously we could say that we could say it's part of the verse. And honestly, here's a question. Let's say that
you
is a
missed your
shop.
entire point when you used
But then here's the question though. Actually, here's the question. For example, the
You
Starbucks
used the word
cup, right?
mistake.
Even if you want to say that, let's say the Starbucks cup does exist in the verse. How does that even affect the verse at all? Does it necessarily even change anything?
Yeah, no, we can absolutely say that if there's Starbucks in the Game of Thrones universe, that implies all sorts of things about their technological capabilities.
Wait, hold up. Wait,
etc.
why does their Starbucks have to be the same as our Starbucks?
Well, you can
They
see
can
the
make hot
cup,
water
you
and
can
tea
see
and
that the
milk,
cup-
right?
Well, now you're looking at the specifics of the. Now you look at the specifics of the exact
Oh,
example.
because
I mean, you
because
could
we
look
don't
at
even
the
know what's in the
flying
drink,
magical
right?
text. That would absolutely mean
So
something.
what
Huh?
we just see is they have something where they can write. We know that they can do like paintings and things, right? They're way past the point of making like they can make like some pretty advanced stuff. So making that type of cup wouldn't necessarily even impact the verse. Right, so what we're talking about is things that.
Okay,
so what we're talking about is things that
teleporting
necessarily
code? I mean,
impact the medium, right? Because then I'm going to ask you a question. When you're, for example, when you analyze a game, let's say you want to say how old a character is in a game. Let's say I left my console on for 7 years. Is that character now suddenly 7 years old? I had him just sit in a corner for 7 years. Is that character now canonically? Would you say that character is canonically 7 years older now?
Well, we're talking specifically about you acknowledging that it matters that it was a mistake.
No,
you
stop.
used the word mistake
I'm
probably 5
acknowledging the
times.
mediums. I'm acknowledging the mediums.
No, but you
Holy
yes, in the sense that
because I
people
gave the
make
example of the
mistakes.
games before. I gave the example of the
No.
God of War lifting crates,
Hey,
and I gave the
don't-
example of someone glitching.
yes.
Because I'm trying to understand what
A
your thought
glitch is a
process is here,
mistake.
right?
A
With your
glitch is a
thought
mistake.
process, with your thought process, if I was to leave a character standing there for 7 years, would you then say that this character canonically got 7 years older?
No,
Why not?
because the intention was not for that to happen. Because again, you used the word.
So you're
mistake
saying
when
that
it
you're
came to Starbucks
accounting
cup.
for the medium when you're debating, right?
Yes, but okay.
Okay,
Even if you want to,
okay, because if you want to get to so the problem is, right, what you're trying to do is reduce it to an absurdity. But if we keep going, we can't have an explanation for anything. We have this is just how humans work, right? We just fundamentally have to have some assumptions, right? We have to have again, I said we have to have the assumption that we can each talk to each other and we can understand what we're saying. And when I say words, you know what I mean, and then I know what you mean, right? That's an assumption, but that's just how the world works. We make the assumption that everyone sees things the same as us, correct?
You said several times that you factored in the fact that the writers can make mistakes. Now,
Because of
I'm
the
sorry that
medium.
you made that mistake. Yes, it doesn't. Okay, fine, but it's still a mistake, which means it's still about what the author thought. If it was intentional, then
because
it wouldn't be a
obviously
mistake. So it
when I
matters
say
to you
that
it's a mistake.
when I say when I'm jumping and I glitch through the floor, I say obviously this is not what's wanted unless that's part of the game, right? I'm saying okay, well this is just not part of it.
Again, I'm gonna be easy on you. You made
Also,
a mistake. You
okay.
called it a mistake. You called it a mistake.
No,
several
the mistake
times,
doesn't
and basically
matter.
undermined your entire point.
It being I didn't say I'm changing my mind. It being a mistake is irrelevant because we're doing this red herring
Why did you
again,
say
right?
it? You
We're on
said
the point
we
here.
take into account
We're on
the
the
fact
point
that
here.
people make
Hold up.
mistakes.
We're on the point
You
here.
took
Hold up. Stop. We're on the point here where so for example, again, here's one of those things. If we're analyzing narratives, right, we can say, when I'm analyzing, Luke doesn't kill Vader in the end. He sees his arm and then he looks at Vader. He's like, I'm becoming like you. I can analyze that. And I can say, this is what the story is trying to tell me. This is what the world is trying to tell me. I guess you would call that author's intent. And I have no, if that's what we're describing as the narrative in the world, sure, that is fine. If I have no problem with saying that, yeah, the author's intent matters in the character A does thing. This is supposed to happen, right? What my problem is the post hoc of the medium is out, and then the character, then the director makes a statement. Post it. I have no problem when we're analyzing it to say that this is what the character, the author is trying to do.
okay. So, but here's the thing, and
I
this is a
said
good,
this before as well, by the way.
This is a good way because here's the thing. What you're describing as two qualitative differences exists actually on a spectrum. So, for example, we have the extreme case of the Starbucks cup, and then we have the other extreme case of, Shakespeare. Maybe like he didn't technically intend for this to happen, but he's long dead, and like he can't just come back to life and like change his mind, right? So like there's two ends of the spectrum. Then there's like a middle of the spectrum, which would be something like this. Like, let's say that you have a feat where like Luke Skywalker like goes from place A to place B in this amount of time, and it shows that he's like hypersonic in speed. But then actually they didn't intend that to happen. Like they just kind of, authors don't think in terms of like feet, so they didn't think about that. So then that's the middle ground where it's like, do we take into account the fact that they didn't actually intend?
Well, then actually, but the problem is this is a very easy solve, right? If there's something like that, and then the rest of the verse treats them, right? Again, because you have to realize, we're looking at it as one feat. The verses have multiple feats. We look at the entirety of, so you never just look at one feat by itself. You look at the entire body of work, right? So if I were to say, okay, is Luke hypersonic? I look at all of it and I say, okay, within this, is this just like an outlier feat, or is this something that's consistent that works with the verse? Because obviously, I believe that outlier feats, can exist, right? I'm not an idiot.
I get what you're saying, but there's a few problems with that. The first is, by the way, Lucas's word actually does bind further works. So if you want to talk about whether it's consistent, Lucas's word enforces consistency.
But we're arguing about whether I should care about Lucas's word post the films anyway.
Even that aside, that's a specific counter, but it doesn't, like, there could be cases where, for example, it's a systemic problem. Like, let's say that they have Han Solo consistently using this blaster, but if you look at the physics carefully, it would require him to be like superhuman in strength because of the recoil that you can calculate from the blaster. That would be something it is consistent, but it's also unintended. So then the question is like,
but then I would say that okay, if that's unintended, but it's a consistent part of the verse, right, that works with the rest of the narrative. Let's say this is the law for the gun. This is the law for how you shoot it. He fights other people that shoot these guns. That I see no problem with it being part of the verse. We can say that then Han Solo would then be superhuman. There's no problem with that.
What I'm saying is, and that's fine, I don't even necessarily disagree with that. What I'm saying is that the difference between that and the Starbucks cup is ultimately a spectrum. Like, for example, a teleporting coat. That is like a goof in like them not properly calculating where the coat should be. Meanwhile, if you have like this like scene where a Star Destroyer is on, like how like the Death Star circumnavigates the Yavin gas giant like so quickly, and people use that to calculate that it's like super fast in traveling, right? That wasn't intended. You could say that was a goof because they didn't like think about where to place it.
Then my question would then be, hey, does this fit with the rest of the verse? If the answer is yes, then I don't care. Right? Is there a problem with it? Like, okay, the problem is we agree on this point. Like, again, I don't understand what we're trying to say, because when the author intends, for example, the author intends for me to fight the boss, and maybe there's those bosses where like you can't beat them. Like when you get them low, they just one shot you. That's what the author intended, but that's not the analysis that I'm talking about, right? Death of the Author talks about
the consistency point is irrelevant because let's say
hold on, I was bringing up a point. Sure. So like I said, the author's intent on that, right? I can say sure, the author intended for that to be like, for me to like lose to this boss, but when I analyze, why did you lose from the boss? But when I analyze, narratively, why did I lose? Or maybe I'm like, okay, this character has more skill than my character, which is why I narratively lost to the boss or whatever, right? If let's say the narrative does support that, and then if the author comes along and says some other stuff, right? If the author is just like, we just didn't finish the end of that boss fight, which is why it is. Do we then say that it's not because of the boss, because they just didn't finish the boss, or do we say it's because of the narrative? Right, we always take what the narrative says above anything else, right? And then the interpretations that support the narrative are the only things that matter. Everything else post-narrative, right, don't matter.
Here's the thing. Okay, I agree. What you're saying, parts of it, I guess large parts of it are true. But here's the thing.
Then that's my argument.
Let me finish. No, let me finish. So initially, or at least recently, you said that when it comes to what you call are extreme cases, like the Starbucks cup or the moving text through the screen, you say, or blooper like the coat is teleporting, right?
Yep.
You say in those cases we can indeed say the author didn't mean that, and we're going to cut it out. And you're saying, well, that's just an extreme case.
No,
In other
absolutely
cases,
not.
no, you literally said that I'm perfectly okay with saying that the author didn't mean for the Starbucks cup to be there.
Yeah,
or
because
the author
if it
didn't
doesn't
mean
fit the
for
narrative, yes.
Okay, so in that case, when you can like incrementally come up with like things in the middle between Luke Skywalker moving fast and the Starbucks. These are not like fundamentally different things. So, for example, the coat moving from one end to the other. Instead, you might have a scene where Obi-Wan moves from one part of Mos Eisley to the other, but they don't calculate his speed right, and then he moves faster than he should. Now you could say, oh, is it consistent? The consistency point is besides the point, because again, we can come up with cases where it's consistently inconsistent, like sound in space, like that's consistent. But is that really the case that there is sound in space in Star Wars? I think
Yes,
most people would
there
say
is.
no, there's not actually sound in space in
I'd say
Star
yes,
Wars.
there is.
So what I'm saying then is that it is a balance between authorial
Okay,
intent
hold on.
and what
Stop.
happens.
So why
it's
we
not
talk?
that
Okay.
authorial intent
Actually,
is God.
before we continue, do you think that I completely disagree completely with authorial intent, and that when I say death of the author, I don't care about authorial intent point blank whatsoever in the way specifically in the way that we've defined it this debate?
So if you care about authorial intent, when do you not care about it?
So I don't care about the author's interpretation. I never said authorial intent. And remember, okay. Before we continue, I just want to remind you, I did define interpretation, and I said this is when I'm saying it. This is the way that I'm using it. So when I say it, you have to like change your mind to the way that if the words are used by fucking normal people,
Okay.
right?
Please remind me, what was your definition of interpretation?
An explanation of what something means. Right.
Okay, so
then
but if I explain the Starbucks cup to be a mistake, that's an interpretation. It's an explanation of what it means.
That's your interpretation based on the information that you have, correct? And then if the author came out right and said, actually no, the Starbucks cup actually exists within the verse, right? Do we now say that? Do we not? Let's say that D&D actually said that. Let's say that they came out and said, yeah, no, there's something called a Starbucks within Game of Thrones. Do we now take that as fact? But there's nothing else that says that. There's no like. There's
That's a good question.
Yep.
Okay, this is what I'll say. In Lucas's case, as absurd as it sounds, according to the policy, hey, dude, just let me finish.
Because you never answered my question.
I was given two cases.
Listen,
I was given two cases. In Lucas's case, because that's literally the way that the canon policy works. Then yes, unless you want, then yes, it actually would mean now. But in normally the cases, this is what I would say. If they if they had planned it, that this was like a secret foreshadowing for like Starbucks to exist in the Game of Thrones universe, then yes, I would say, yeah, I'll take that. Now, the other end of the spectrum is if they just are trying to save face and they like fucked up, then I would be a little skeptical.
How can you tell the difference?
The difference is that...
How can you tell the
difference?
That's
the thing. There's a spectrum between the two. But you agree that on the former end, that would...
Because the problem is this entire point is being such a red herring. I'm really dumb for going down this path. This is entirely a red herring. You understand that, right? This has nothing to do with interpretations post hoc.
No, that's why. No, I was literally making that difference. I was saying if they planned it, versus on the one end of the spectrum, versus if they're just trying to save face after it happens. So the second one is post hoc, right? The first one's not post hoc.
Wait, them explaining what happens, it's both are post hoc, yes. Oh right. No. Okay, no. So my bad. I misunderstood what you said. Yeah. Okay.
Assuming by post hoc you don't mean that.
So what you're saying is, so what you're saying here is that you're saying that then that wouldn't be a mistake. That would just be part of the verse. That's like that's like them hinting at them like showing like some crest and like on the floor, and then it coming up later. That's just another part of the verse. That would not be anything relevant. Sure, it would be their intent. But it'd be as much as their intent for Tyrion to drink a lot of wine, or Fuckboy McGee to Snow White to die. Not Snow White. What's his name? Jon Snow.
So the fact that you said it wasn't a mistake, it's just part of the verse. So, and I think you agree now. Whether or not it's a mistake beforehand matters. Now we're getting to whether or not it's a mistake after the fact, like whether they can after they've already done it.
If something is part of the verse, how can we say it's a mistake? for example, let's say that
No,
like
that's my point. My point is that it's not a mistake, but the fact that it matters that it wasn't a mistake means that intent matters, or interpretation. Sorry,
you keep saying intent matters. Like I disagree. The way that we define intent.
Interpretation-
Stop.
You
No.
said
Shut the fuck up.
interpretation
Don't,
is an
you stupid
explanation.
motherfucker. Don't
Is
say
an
intent and
explanation.
interpretation are saying the same thing. Because I gave you the definition. Don't do that. So, like I said,
Okay.
like I said,
Interpretation. No, I'm using your word now. Interpretation, right? Interpretation you define as their explanation of something, right?
yeah, explaining
So-
what something means. Yes.
Explaining what something means. So there's a Starbucks cup there. Let's say that they didn't even catch it until it already came out, and they were like, "Oh, holy fuck! Now there's this Starbucks cup here." Now they can say that, well, it means that we just made a mistake and it's a blooper, right? So if you're saying that they have the power, quote unquote, of course they don't literally have the power. You can think what you want, but like they have the power to any reasonable conversation to say that wasn't supposed to be there, and that's my explanation of it. And their interpretation does matter because now they're able to explain away that cup.
Wait, okay, but then if I also say that it's a mistake, do they inherently have more power than me? This is the point, right?
Well, they obviously know more about whether it was a mistake than you do, right? Like they're like again, you've used the word
We're
mistake
analyzing
yourself. You care
the
about whether or
medium.
not it's a mistake. You care about whether or not it's a mistake because you used the word yourself. And obviously, the people who made it, obviously, it could be lying. So
Okay.
if you want to say they're lying, then sure. But like
I
they
didn't
probably
say-
know more about whether or not it's a mistake than you do. So yes, I do care about their interpretation more than I care about yours because they know more about whether it was a mistake or not. Now, granted, you could say, I don't care that it's a mistake. I'm going to use it anyway. But you do care about whether it's a mistake. Most people do. And it might be a spectrum. Again, with the Luke Skywalker moving fast.
When you say mistake, when you say mistake, you literally just mean is this supposed to be part of the verse?
So there's like a spectrum between that and also, for example, like the exact. No, let me.
Because
Dude,
it's
let me-
like
let me
you
finish my
just
sentence.
hate answering questions. You despise that
No,
shit.
it's-
You
I
fucking run
answered
away
the
from it
question.
every single time you get.
Hey. I said that it's a spectrum. For example, when Obi-Wan moves faster than he should, that is about.
Why is that a
facts in the
mistake?
verse. That's about facts in the verse because it's about his exact
That's just-
placement at this part of the Mos Eisley versus that part, right? And what I'm saying is that it's debatable whether or not they have the right to override that. They can override the Starbucks cup.
Wait,
And
override
then
that?
there's a
Okay, hold
place-
up. Actually, hold up. Let's use that. Let's use the Mos Eisley example. If I just interpret that as he's just very fast, and then they say he's not supposed to be that fast, what would that interpretation be more valid than mine?
Why is that answer different from the Starbucks cup?
Because you're trying to say that it's a mistake. You're saying that it being a mistake is irrelevant, right? And the problem is, I'm not disagreeing, but you keep
No,
going.
it is
hold up.
relevant. It is relevant.
The problem is, I'm not disagreeing, right? But you keep going back to it. So then let's answer this Obi-Wan question. Let's say that I just say that I just say okay, well, no, that's just how fast he is in the verse. He goes from point A to point B, and then you say that okay, and then they say no, actually he moved too fast. No, not that he moved too fast. That he showed up like when he wasn't supposed to. Like and saw something that he wasn't supposed to. Let's just say the move that just says, we've seen some calcs and that he moves too fast, right? What interpretation would be necessarily better there?
Okay, so
Oh,
my
this nigga's not gonna
methodology-
fucking answer, is he?
No.
Please answer.
Dude, you spent 20 seconds asking, and in 3 seconds
Because
I'm not allowed to
it's because you
okay,
go.
No, let me. Hey, whoa. Okay, so this is what I think. I care about whether or not it's a mistake, but I don't care about it only. Like I care about other things too. Like if it's a very subtle mistake, I might be like, fuck them, But that doesn't mean I don't care at all. I will take it into account. But the difference is that you're acting like the Starbucks cup versus Obi-Wan's placement is a difference in kind. It's just a difference in degree, in the sense that there's somewhere in the middle where we decide that other factors override the fact that there was intent. But the fact that you agree with the Starbucks cup mistake, them having the power to do that, means you agree that death of the author does not always apply. You agree that it might not be as strong as
I'm going to do this
It
again.
isn't-
I'm going to ask my
its
question
strength is
again
not
because you
zero.
didn't
Its
answer.
strength
So
is not-
so if I have the
its strength is not
interpretation of
zero.
Obi-Wan just moves very fast, and they have the interpretation of no, this was wrong, but this isn't. They just because they saw Cal that it was too fast. Which one would you go with? I'm going to ask that question again. If you give me another bullshit answer, I'm going to ask for the. Hold up. I'm going to ask for the. If you don't answer the question again, right?
I just answered it. It's
Listen,
in the middle.
listen,
I just
listen.
answered it. It's
So like
in
I
the
said,
middle.
if you
It's
don't
like
answer, if you don't
50%
answer the
chance,
question,
like that.
if you don't answer the question,
kidding.
if you don't answer the question again because you keep fucking ducking, I'm just gonna go, right? Just answer the
answer
question. The question is specifically which interpretation in this instance would you go with? That is the question.
I have to pick one.
Huh?
I have to pick one.
So you just don't want to answer the question?
No.
Okay,
you
cool.
can't
That's fine.
decide
Okay, see you, retard. Get
no, hang on a second.
No,
You said that all
I'm done.
interpretations are okay, so why
Listen,
can't I
you
come up with my
you don't
own
listen.
interpretation?
If you don't want to have the
Why can't I
discussion,
come up with my
if you
own
don't want to have the
interpretation?
discussion, why are you talking?
Okay, fine. I'll play your game. I'll take the author's interpretation.
So then why would you take the author's interpretation in that situation?
Because you agreed that he has the power to override the Starbucks cup. So why can't he override?
Wait, hold
what
up.
he
So
wants?
listen to me. So nothing else has happened in the verse. If later on in the verse something new comes out, that's fine because obviously past interpretations don't account for future process, don't account for future things. We can't account for that, right? So if nothing else has come out, right? Like I said, obviously again, like I said, if this is like some hint at something else, and like let's say in season 9 they made like a big Starbucks shop, that'd be different, right? But right now there isn't a season 9, so we only have the information that we currently have. So how do we? So then, which interpretation would you go with if we only currently have this information? Obviously, if you have information that makes one of the interpretations wrong, we're gonna go with the one that isn't wrong.
I just said the author's one. I mean,
Okay, so then why would you go with the author's one?
Well, I just answered this question.
Oh, so you're saying that regardless of so you're saying that regardless of if there's more works in the fiction that support this, right? So let's say we're getting the Starbucks example. Regardless whether there's more works in the fiction or not, you would go with the author because they have the ability to then hold up.
If you give me more stuff, if you're changing it to say also this additional information, then I might
so you're
change
saying that
my answer.
regardless of the authors, because they have the ability to change things, you would then further on, no matter what, go with their statement just because they can make it better in the future.
I didn't say no matter what.
You said that they have the power to change things, correct? So an author can make literally any statement they want whatsoever and then add that to the verse, right?
This is what.
Wait, hold up, please, because I answer your questions very directly.
I can't even get 5 seconds.
An answer,
I answered your question.
Is that a yes? Is that a yes?
Well, let me. Why is it? I'm allowed to give nuanced answers. You can give me like 20 seconds when you just took up a minute. Okay.
So I'm going to ask you again. Just answer the question. I don't care about this. I don't care about you running because the reason I interrupt you is because you don't answer the question. You just run around. So I'm going to ask you again. Are you saying that you are going with the author's interpretation because they have the ability to change into the future, or am I getting your point wrong? Yes or no? Am I getting your point wrong?
Yes, you're kind of getting it wrong. So let me explain.
Okay.
Because you're getting it wrong, so I can explain, right?
Explain.
My point is, at least outside of Lucas, my point is not that the author's word is the only thing that matters. What I'm saying is that it is a factor, and you agree that it is a factor because in the Starbucks cup example, you side with it. Now, it's not omnipotent. Sometimes, if the author's just being a dick, the author's just like trying to like explain away his own failures. You can be like, "Fuck you, let's just go with something else." But it gets a say. Which means that death of the author, which you say means that his interpretation has no extra weight.
Yes, because you have to remember, because again, I'm going to say this. When I say interpretation and intent, I obviously mean two different things.
Yes.
And for some reason...
interpretation. So you said an explanation of what happened. So they're allowed to use their interpretation for the Starbucks cup. Now, there might be cases where they cannot use it. But this just means that like all of the pieces of evidence, it is important, but not the only thing that matters. So that debunks your claim that it doesn't matter at all. At the beginning, you said death of the author means it doesn't matter at all. The fact that you used it for the Starbucks cup, the interpretation means that it has some weight.
Okay,
now we can do how much weight, but you basically admitted when you used the word mistake that you care about it, even if it's only a little bit.
Okay, because you're conflating the authorial intent of what happens, aka the events that happen in the story, right, with the author's interpretation post hoc. You're conflating those two factors.
No, because with the Starbucks cup, they might have missed it, so it is post hoc. They missed it, and now they're trying to explain it away.
Yeah, that's fine. Whether they intended for it to be there or not, it is there. So their explanation post hoc, right, is what doesn't matter. Right? Sorry, my bad. Let me be more specific. Is what is only relevant, right, when it comes to explaining the verse.
Well, what else could it be?
What do you mean? What else could it be? What if a Starbucks does exist? What if again? What if like something called a Starbucks does exist in Game of Thrones?
So you're asking me if they're allowed to say that a Starbucks does exist?
No, I'm saying that whether they intended it to be there or not, it is there, right? And it is part of the story, right? Now their explanation, right? Unless they change it in future seasons, right? We go with Occam's razor, which is okay. Is this supposed to be part of the narrative, right? And that is like if you again. So the problem is when you say author's intent, you're talking about something different. Because when you say author's intent, you're saying that when you say author's intent, when you say author's intent, you're saying it as if that it's not just what happens in the story.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, your argument was their interpretation is not any more valid than yours. And then you say, oh, we know that sometimes they make mistakes. So you care about the word mistakes. Now, it's
I
true
care about
that,
the word mistakes because I'm not a fucking artist.
Right.
So it comes to the simple fact of right. I understand the difference. Okay. Also, it's 2:25 in the morning. I'm gonna have to go soon because I have work in the morning. And I did tell you this before, but anyway. So like I'm saying, right? You are conflating what it means for something to be in authored intent, as in this just happens, right? And then author's intent is this is what they intended for it to happen, which is why again you didn't answer the question at the start, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's try to bring like a very like we can even have a constructive solution to this, right? So when your original statement was the author's interpretation of events is not any more valid than yours. So, and you would define interpretation as an explanation of what happened. If, for example, there was either the Starbucks cup or the teleporting coat or the magic moving screens or whatever, and then you say, well, with the Starbucks cup, we know that they make mistakes, so it wasn't meant to be interpreted that way. And that means that you care about the fact that they didn't mean for that. Now you're saying, oh, well, maybe we're just using Occam's razor instead. That's a separate methodology.
No.
Although in this case, you've said
you keep just not listening to what I said because I literally brought up Occam's earlier.
I'm saying that I'm okay with the author's interpretation that the Starbucks cup wasn't. Now, is that an extreme example? Yes. We can come with less extreme examples like the Obi-Wan moving and then say, in that case, it's debatable. And what I'm saying is that there's no magical line where suddenly it stops mattering. Rather, it's a factor among many factors. It's not that the author's interpretation is God, unless if it's Lucas. It's that the author's interpretation has some value above zero. The fact that you sometimes take it into account and sometimes you don't, even post hoc, because they might have missed it in production. And then after the fact, you're like, oh yeah, okay, I guess. Or for example, Anakin slips in the bathtub and then they have to come, or Luke slips or whatever, and they have to come up with an explanation and they create stories for it, right? Like, the death of the author. Do those stories not matter at all? I'm just saying it matters. Maybe a little bit, maybe a lot. It depends.
Because again, holy shit, you actually missed. Because again, I said it only matters if it's relevant to the verse, right? I'm saying it doesn't matter. Not that it doesn't matter. Period. Right? I said it matters only, right? If it supports the verse more than someone else's interpretation. If I have an interpretation and the author has an interpretation, right, and his doesn't support the verse and he doesn't create anything new, right? He doesn't create anything new to then change it. Then we would obviously go with my interpretation.
Why were you talking about mistakes? Like, oh, they make mistakes, so we should take that into account.
I was talking about the mediums because you were talking about the
medium. Well, when we talked about the Starbucks cup, you said, "Oh, people make mistakes." Like the medium is made up of people. Like you care about.
Wait, so are you saying that people don't make movies?
No, I'm saying that.
I also brought up the fact that glitches happen in games.
Exactly, and that's a mistake. That's about interpretation or whatever word you want to use. They didn't mean for it to be a literal like clue that you're in the Matrix in the game, right? So you care about the fact that. Again,
I care about what happens in the narrative or what happens in the story, sure. And then I would analyze what happens in the story to come up with my interpretation. But just because the author comes up with an interpretation doesn't inherently make that interpretation better than mine. It just depends on what.
I didn't
what,
say it inherently makes it better always. It's just a factor. But
wait a minute. Hold on. Wait. So if
you
again,
care about the fact that it's a mistake.
So here's a question. If again,
so
this is what I've been trying to get point at this entire time. If me and an author make an interpretation and my interpretation supports the story more than him, does it matter? Like, does his interpretation matter then? No, because what we're doing right at this point is just simply saying, oh, what fits what we've shown in the medium more. Sorry, my bad. In the medium more, because this is just what happens. Whether the author intended for something to happen or not, it did happen, right? And then we interpret it based on the medium, right? I mean, my like, you know, me scratching up my fucking GTA game and then it glitching out. I don't just say that, oh, when fucking, you know, Nico walked into a building, he fell through a black hole. Like that's not like I guess I could have that as my interpretation of GTA.
Mediums can be moved by creative authors too. For example, sometimes the music in the film or the moving text is like, usually it's meant to just
then
be
that's part of the story.
Yeah, but if the author, fine. But some directors deliberately make it a part of the story.
Yeah, I understand. I gave the example of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes. So
I literally gave an example already, and we explained this.
So you care about it.
I care about what literally happens in the medium, and then we explain to it and try to make that the most consistent, right? And any explanation that supports that without new evidence is the best.
If that's your position, you shouldn't have said that you care about the fact that they make mistakes and that it's just a mistake. Like you literally said
mistakes.
That now
hold up. The mistakes is if something doesn't support the rest of the verse. If something happens and it's completely incoherent with the rest of the verse, why would I somehow count that?
What if they want to make it incoherent with the rest of us? It could be some sort of like special like power or some sort of like,
if it's some
like
special, okay, hold up, incoherent with the rest of the verse does not mean not weird. Incoherent with the rest of the verse is me falling through the map and then me dying and restarting. Right. Now some games some games might make that part of it. Like some games might, like, you know, on purpose, like destroy all the map and like make you see the black of the world and then kill you. That is fine, but then that's part of that game. Right, and then obviously we don't just paint with wide brushes what is and what isn't. We go narrative by narrative.
All right.
Okay.
I'm glad we probably could have like talked more about along this lines, because I actually think there's some interesting things to be had there. Where I'll say the TLDR is that you can't fundamentally separate things like writing and movies that are inherently supposed to be methods of communication from whether you call it intent or interpretation, because literally all of these are just methodologies for people to communicate. So the idea that the thoughts of the author or the interpretations of the creator don't matter for communication means that communication is like completely bunk. Like it's only based on, I'm going to call it intent, that makes these things possible in the first place. Not that's the only thing that matters. But what I'll say is this, with regards to Lucas specifically, I get what you're saying, that technically anyone can like just create any canon that they want. But to anyone listening, from a practical standpoint, if you care about the EU, by definition, the EU has G canon, and by definition, Lucas's word is G canon. If you don't like it, you can like create house rules, but within the methodology of the EU, that is like, it's not meant to be a fundamental philosophical statement about whether there's an objective truth to interpretations, which there isn't. I'm just saying that for the purposes, there's overwhelming evidence that that's the way that it works there. With regards to the general concept of death of the author, I think that, again, if we look at it more carefully, you can't fundamentally separate the interpretation, the intent or interpretation of the author from the medium. Even something as simple as the fact that in order to create a movie, you have to have like a protocol for encoding and decoding it, and you have to like say that I intended this to be in black and white or in color, and then like somebody else could have decided to like put it through a different medium that then completely changes what the movie looks like. Like the intention or the interpretation of the author to say, or I'm writing this in English and I'm writing this in Old English, so these words mean this thing in my mind and not the other thing. If you separate the medium from the communication and interpersonal aspect, it literally just becomes random atoms. Like it no longer has any meaning behind it. Okay, it's not the only thing that matters, but the intent is definitely a part of it. But that's not like, but for Star Wars specifically, there's not even a question. Okay. If you're going to create a different version of Star Wars, it's not Star Wars. It's like, you know, True Star Wars or Elm Star Wars.
Okay, so you done?
Sure.
Sure, yeah. I'm fucking going to sleep. It's 2:30. Got places to be tomorrow. Jesus Christ.
Well, nice conversation. Maybe talk to you later.
Probably not. I don't like you. Jesus Christ. That dude just... that was awful. This dude did just not know how to use words. He would just conflate two different words and then say they had the same meaning, and then when I tried to get him to give a definition, he never would. So, yeah, he just conflated words and used them. Fucking awful.